please, let's start the recording now. And yeah, welcome to our second live webinar on module 2. On module 1, today is March 31st, and I'm very happy to be here with you again. I hope you have either participated last week in the live webinar or you have watched the recording, so that we are all on the same page, more or less. Yeah, a very warm welcome wherever you are participating from. As I've seen in the chat already, it's widely spread all over the world. Again, we have live captions available, so please make sure you turn them on and adjust the font size according to your preferences. We have Tristan and Axel here with us again. They will monitor the chat function, so in case you have any issues, technical nature, or any content questions, please feel free to put them into the chat box. As last week, we provided the recordings after the webinar. This will happen today as well. And we will also put the presentation online as well. We will share a YouTube link on Slack and put it on the e-learning platform as well. Okay, so what we will cover today, the entire training team is very happy about the facilitator we are having today. We will shortly introduce him. Then we will give you a short introduction on Sphere, how to approach Sphere in context, which is basically also what has been covered in the e-learning, but the live webinar is used to post some additional material to highlight some key points that have been come up, as well as to give you the possibility to express some questions. And then we have the additional topic on quality and accountability. As soon as we've been through that, we will have some time to go through the chat box and discuss your questions you have been raised. And in case we have some time, we will do an optional breakout session. This is optional. This means you do not have to participate, but it would be great if you do, because then it enables you to get to know the other learners, to get to know the other expert among us. As we are not able to meet physically, this is the one opportunity we can give you to meet among each other and exchange and share everything. But I will explain in more detail how the breakout session will look like later on. So I'm sure some of you might know him already. We are very delighted and honored that Ibrahim Hatibu will open our first live webinar today on module 1. Maybe Hatibu, please, you can shortly introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the session. It's my pleasure to be with you all. And I look forward to an interesting session and active discussion as we promote the Sphere community. So we'll be talking in detail shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, Hatibu. So nice. We have been working together during the last years, and we received always a lot of positive feedback after Hatibu has done a session. Of course, Adi and Raisa are here with us again, providing the live captions. We have introduced both of them during the last session. Also, Axel and Tristan, as I mentioned before, are here with us again to take care of all your issues raising in the chat box. Tristan will also take care of some of the comments that have been raised so far on the technical side and walk you shortly through the e-learning again. If we have time, Leo, who is here with us again, will give a short overview what has been happening in the Sphere expert channel so far. And last but not least, and most importantly, we have Mas Anang with us here, who will reflect on today's input through the lens of the community. So we are very much looking forward to that. What I want to mention on this side is that we have a Sphere learners database. So Hatibu, Leo, as well as Axel are all listed as official Sphere trainers on the Sphere database, as well as Sphere focal points. So in case you are a Sphere trainer and you are not listed on this database, please make sure to give Tristan a ring or write him an email so that you can talk or arrange some further agreements on that. And also, in case you want to organize a Sphere training yourself, please also get in contact on any regional Sphere focal points or Sphere trainers that are listed in your regions, and also discuss further arrangements. The link of the database will be shared in the chat box. So to continue, what's about you? Are you also a learner? We would like to know who or where our participants are experts in, and we would like to know whether you are a trainer yourself, whether you are a Sphere trainer, or whether you are a listed Sphere trainer within the database already. So I would like to start a little poll again with you because it worked so well last time. So please put in your votes whether you are a trainer, a Sphere trainer, or a listed Sphere trainer in the database. I will give you approximately 1 minute and then we see what results we will have received so far. That's true. So then, of course, everybody who is not a Sphere trainer or a trainer in the Sphere database is a trainer, him or herself, of course, because we are all learners and teachers for each other, right? So let's share what have been out. So we have, can you see the results? Maybe you can show me hands up. So we have four Sphere trainers with us and 6 listed Sphere trainers in the database so far. Thank you for that. All right. Now, I would like to hand over to Hatibu, and yeah, always remember we are here in a Sphere training, so I hope all of you have the book with you or the PDF version of it.
You're muted, Mr. Hatibu.
Can you hear me now? Leo, I think I'm glad that I was muted because you have managed to call me Mr. And no, Mr. is a very senior position. So thank you for that.
Of course,
so
Mwalimu.
Welcome, Asante. So welcome everybody to this session. I would like to start by emphasizing that it's not a big academic session whereby we're going to deal too much in the content, but it's rather a reflection of your learnings that you've done online, the comments you've raised via Slack, and possibly we'll have time to interact through polls. And at the end of the session, we'll have a chance to review in our rooms and see how we can learn together as a team. So this is going to be a brief session with the main focus on reflecting on what we've so far covered in Module 1, the lessons that you've learned from your feedback, and a little bit of reinforcing some key aspects that you've seen possibly are lacking or they need to be reinforced along the way. So welcome and hope it will be interesting and enjoyable to you all. Now, Sphere, as it is, I know there are plenty of you who have linked Sphere just to the handbook, but Sphere is more than the handbook. Sphere is a movement, it's a community, it's a platform where a group of people working together to advance the philosophy. So people in the field, people in the planning, people in management, communities, people who are working together to ensure that the philosophy of Sphere is enhanced, they form the bigger Sphere family. So the key point to take from there is that Sphere is more than the handbook. It's a movement, and it brings out a group of people, a group of communities, institutions that want to work together to advance the philosophy globally. Now, what we have in this network, we have the Secretariat, of course, which focuses more on the overall coordination of Sphere activities, coordinating with partners, coordinating with members, coordinating with the trainers, and all those interested in the Sphere movement. And of course, we'll have the focal points. This will be people based in regions who have a love for Sphere, and they'll want to encourage Sphere engagement within their regions. And it could be either individuals, or it could also be institutions who want to further Sphere philosophy in their regions. Then, of course, we have the trainers, one of them. And from that initial poll, we saw that majority of you are trainers, even though you haven't taken up the role of Sphere trainer. But we are in the business of ensuring that skills, knowledge sharing, and learning goes beyond what we know, and that we get to engage more people and stakeholders across the globe. Then we have the membership. Members are people who decide deliberately to be actively engaged in Sphere. It could be as institutions or as individual members. And what it means is in terms of helping streamline the Sphere strategy, helping streamline the lessons learned from the field, and coming up with ways of enhancing Sphere and bringing more stakeholders on board. Personally, I'm an individual member of Sphere, and I know most of you, most of your organizations should be members of Sphere, and if not, they'll possibly get a link where they can access to become members and support Sphere. Then we have authors, people who have given content, people who have referenced their material. These are the people who encourage Sphere learning. They want to document. They also support the process. And then, of course, we'll have experts who are the content experts. You realize, for example, Sphere has a lot of legal input. So we'll possibly have people who are well-versed in matters law. We'll have people who are well-versed in the technical chapters, for example, water engineers, civil engineers. We'll have medics, we'll have nutritionists, we'll have people in shelter, people who bring those specific expertise into developing the Sphere learning. And then, of course, we realize that much of Sphere work that goes around the globe is based on supporting communities, some of them which are unable to raise sufficient funds to support. So the role of donors cannot be ignored. They enable the Secretariat to run, they enable the production of these materials in terms of engaging experts to review the materials. So donors are key in terms of ensuring that the Sphere movement is strong enough and achieve its objectives. Then you'll have partners, people who want to come on board to work with Sphere. Either it could be in the learning aspect, the technical aspect, or in terms of in-kind support. And then we have practitioners who are people from the front line, people working in the field, who are working day and out to ensure that the Sphere objectives, the Sphere movement, the Sphere philosophy is enshrined in all the activities that we do in the field across programs. There was a little survey that was done for you in terms of finding out how you have been able to access the Sphere handbook. and why you found that the most appropriate way. Now, looking at the layout there, we see that PDF stands out. Biggest percentage of you say that you accessed the PDF most. And the reason why you accessed PDF most is that you have preferred to have, the hard copy, the handbook itself, but it's limited in access wherever you are, and also possibly the logistics involved. That's why you preferred the PDF. There are those who also went to print it out. There are those who found it online, and there are also those who had a chance to do the handbook itself. Now, all we need to pick from here is that one is that while the print is most favorable and most liked, Sphere is in the process of encouraging the use of the online interactive book, in that when you're online, you can be able to navigate and get to the content you want. And at the same time, you can engage in terms of giving your feedback in terms of how you're applying in the field and the lessons that you may have learned. And also going forward, you realize throughout the course that Sphere with the partners is taking the leadership in terms of ensuring that the humanitarian standards are brought together in one place where people can be able to navigate and go to the point that they need. Right now is a process of, right now we have the HSP, the Humanitarian Standard Partnership, which is an app that you can get to download online and use it. But also the Sphere is in the process of working with the partners in terms of having a cross-cutting platform that you can be able to search and know what you need across those standards. So there are many ways that are coming up that will make it easier for you to access the Sphere handbook, whether it's online, whether through the app, or whether through the stores, that will make it as applicable in your context. Would you want to go, Francie?
Yeah, so during the last session last week, we said already that we wanted to discuss the results of the poll we did last week today. But before we will discuss the results, we would like to give you another chance to vote. And then we will talk about it. So again, what are these statements? They are somewhere to find in the handbook: 15 liters of water per person per day, 2,100 kilocalories per person per day, and the last statement, 1 toilet per 20 persons. So what are these statements? I will share the poll with you. And I will leave it for 1 minute so that you can vote again. Let's see how it turns out this time. So more than half of the participants have already voted. We will wait 30 more seconds so that all of you put in their votes. So 80% have voted. Let's wait 10 more seconds. Please put in your answers. 200 people have already voted. Okay, as we have a clear outcome, I will end the poll right now and show you the results. Can you just give me a heads up whether you can see it? All right. Okay, thank you for voting, and over to you, Hatibu.
Thank you. Now, I think we can see from that voting that 2% think that these statements are key actions, 63% think that these are standards, and 34% think that these are key indicators. This is something that possibly we need to do more and more and more. This had come from your previous input in terms of explaining what indicators are, but let me go to this. Now, I need to emphasize the difference between the indicators and the standards. Now, whenever you get to start seeing numbers that are very specific, for example, I'm talking about 15 liters of water per person per day. Will this be applying the same for the person in Uruguay, the person in Nairobi, the person down in Afghanistan? If you see something that it's not universal and it's gonna be context specific, then you need to know, sorry for that, you need to know that that cannot be a standard, because a standard is supposed to be universal and it's talking about the overall status, the overall well-being of the people. So the 15 liters of water per person per day cannot be a standard. 2, it may also not be an action, because a key action are mostly suggestions that help you in terms of doing things in the field. It'll be like activities. It's a buffet of suggestions that you can use or may not use depending on your context. And so what we're left with is an indicator. Now, the 15 liters of water per person per day is an indicator under water supply. And this means that is, if you want to see that you're progressing towards ensuring sufficient water for persons, that will be an indicator, but it's not the standard. There could be contexts that possibly people don't require those 15 liters. There could be context that people require 16 liters. This could vary depending on the, is it on the onset of a crisis? Is it getting stable? Are these people using water for other purposes? For example, hygiene, ablution. Are they maybe lactating mothers at that particular time? Are they using that water also to cook or not? The next one is 2,100 kilocalories per person per day. It's also an indicator under the food aid, what used to call food distribution. But people require different things depending on their needs and whatever is in the market. It could be a child, it could be an adult. So they could require different things, So that is just an indicator, not a standard. It can be used globally for everybody across the globe because there'll be unique needs. But it's an indicator that we can use to measure whether we are moving towards achieving the standards or not. 1 toilet per 20 persons is also an indicator. And this will be possibly if you want to put it in a communal toilet, or where there is a family, for example. It could be that you are maybe the displaced population are living on a flat. It may be different. It could be that possibly they're living in an open field. It may be different. It could be that they just arrived yesterday. So to have sufficient toilets per person may not be easy, but that could be an indicator to show us that we are moving towards achieving that. And this is an indicator in terms of it's under wash, in terms of waste disposal and sanitation. So all those 3 items, please note, if they come back to you, please know that those are indicators and not standards. We see 63% of you said they were standards. Please note they are indicators. Standards are universal, qualitative in nature, and they can be applied everywhere. It's something that we strive to achieve, or we work together as sphere community to get there for everybody. These ones are just indicators, and they could vary depending on the context, varying on the need, depending on the resources. So you see, this one also was provided previously in terms of wanted to know what an indicator was. There was some good performance. You see the 72%, they say that the indicators should be considered in the light of both the context and the phase of the response, the point you've just talked on the previous slide. But we see that while 72% will give you a grade elsewhere, we would like to encourage that should be higher than 72, possibly 80, 90, because it is very key that indicators are considered based on the phase of the response, and two, based on the context. It is not a one indicator fits all. There will be so many factors that will determine how that indicator is made. So please link the context and the phase of the response to your indicators. The next one is they serve as signals to measure whether the standard is being attained. I think this is pretty good. Most of you got it right. It almost went to 100%. And I get this also from experience as people in the field and doing programs. Now, I put this slide here just to summarize. As you go through the handbook at your own pace, you'll possibly try to see how these are interrelated. Now, we're going to look about the general structure, the layout of the standards. When you pick, let's say, on food security and nutrition, when you get to that, you'll find the standards, and every standard for the technical chapters will begin with an introduction, including essential concepts, because each technical sector will have its own technical terminology that they use. So to help us understand the standard, those essential concepts will be brought to us. And then you'll have the standard itself, which will be more qualitative and the bigger picture in terms of what we aspire to achieve. And then below there, you have the key actions. The key actions is just a set of suggestions, the things that you can do, the to-do list that you can pick from. You may do all of them, you may add more, or you may do none, depending on your context. Those are suggestions of what you can do. And then you have key indicators, as we said before, they'll help you in terms of measuring the progress towards what you want to be. And those key indicators are rather supported by the guidance notes, which helps explain further and help you in terms of contextualizing the indicators so that it's not one blanket for all. And then you'll find the appendices, which are the other tools, the other important documents that you will want to refer to. You may want to refer to the code of conduct for the Red Cross and the NGOs. And then you'll have references and further reading. You realize that the experts have extracted this material to make it compact for us, but you may want to go and do your own further reading. It may be maybe how we treat maybe global malnutrition, how one you do the acute malnutrition. But then what you have in the Sphere handbook may not be everything that you need to know. So those references and further reading will help you to go and enrich yourself in terms of content and in terms of if you want to apply that in the field. And then we have the link with other standards. This is where we'll have other sector-specific standards that will come in, and others that will be more universal in terms of how we deal with people. Now, for example, we'll have the core humanitarian standard, the CHS, you'll find it there. You'll have the livestock guidelines in emergencies, for example, which is for livestock. You'll have standards that deal with the people with the disabilities and inclusion. So there'll be links if you want to go and read further on other existing standards. You'll find a place to go and search them and read them independently. Luckily for you right now, we have that humanitarian partnership standard that is an app that brings all those things together so you can access them. And in the near future, you are going to have a platform whereby you can interact and search for areas that are specific to your program and get them as easily. Now, we talk about learning, but learning is not sufficient. We can have the knowledge, we can have the skills, but it is important that we find a way of adopting the entire approach so that we do not do things in isolation. So the key important thing we need to know is that some people say that we have not achieved the standard. We cannot do this because we live in this part of the world or that other corner. It is important that we always strive to do the best we can with the resources that you have available. Now, I don't know if you have proverbs elsewhere, wherever you are, but the most common one, this part, I'm in Kenya right now, it is that the stick that you have in your hand is the one that you can use to kill a serpent or a snake that raids you. So you cannot wait for all these resources to come for you to start. You do your best using the resources you have and do more advocacy and do more fundraising, look for more partnerships to get more resources to continue. Then two, you need to explain what your program achieved, what you learned, and what it still needs to be done. I know people like to corrupt your data so that it looks good, you remove the bad things, but that isn't what Sphere wants. Sphere acknowledges that it is difficult sometimes to get everything done, but it is important that we look at what we achieved, what we learned from the process, and think about what we can do as individuals, as organizations, and the entire community in improving. So if we don't accept our gaps, we'll not be able to solve the problems. And then we need to advocate for more action and more resources. That means talk to people, look for more partners, governments, donors, communities, organizations to invest more. And then we need to ensure that the affected populations actively participate at all stages of the program. Participation is key. And when we talk about participation, we mean it is the whole ladder, from getting about the project, deciding what they want, what format they want, evaluating, learning, prioritizing, partnering, bringing contributions on board. So it is the participation of partnership where people have an equal say and that their decisions and say does matter. I will just highlight the CHS a little bit. I don't want to go in details because we don't have too much time, but it's something that you can access. It is already in the Sphere handbook, but you can also find it as an independent document elsewhere. Now, you'll see that there is several, it has 9 commitments. And you see what at the center, we have communities and people affected by crisis. Now, what that picture tells us is that whatever we need to do, whether it is our recruitment, you may be recruiting qualified staff, but please do that in the eyes of the people you are serving. You may be designing programs, do that in the people you're trying to design for. So for everything we do, it must be focused on the communities and the people that are affected by crisis so that it can have the results that are intended. And you can see there is that inner circle that talks about, those are the 4 principles in terms of, of humanitarianism. So we're talking about impartiality. It's a matter of we do not take sides. Neutrality, it means that whatever we do is based on need alone. It is not given other interests. It's not hidden interest that we do things. Independence is that let's not be influenced by outside forces, but let's be influenced by the interest of the people we want to assist. And humanity is that everybody who is in need should be assisted irrespective of his race, culture, nationality, or whatever. All these things need to determine what we need to do. And then you'll see that it moves all the way from number 1, which talks about humanitarian response is appropriate and relevant. It goes all the way up to commitment number 9, which talks about resources are managed and used responsibly for their intended purpose. Now, you can do things right, but in the process, you are misusing the resources. That will not be supporting the Sphere philosophy. So it means that whatever we do, we should be looking at all those commitments and how they interrelate, and then finally how they influence how the populations are going to be served. Now, this is an example of a case study from Kisumu County in Kenya. And now it's an example of where the Kenya Red Cross Society partnered with the county government, or rather the regional government of Kisumu, to see how they could affect people who are affected by flood. This is an area that includes plenty of perennial flooding, and most of the time people have no options to survive, or they either lose plenty of their property. So you can see in terms of the CHS, I'm talking about how people coordinate. You see that first, the Kenya Red Cross was there in the initial stages of working towards inclusive programming, meaning that whatever they are going to intervene was covering the interest of everybody. And that two, they also put in the lessons that had been learned from previous interactions from the floods. And then you can also see that people who had special needs, like the older people and persons with disabilities, were usually carried to safety on someone's back or transported in a cart before. But at least there were ways community had some form of capacity that was existing in terms of helping those who are vulnerable or they required special needs. And so based on that, they were able to work with the government in terms of mapping who was living where, who was more vulnerable, and how they could be assisted, and what kind of assistance they could acquire. So this is one example whereby if people come together and they do joint planning, engaging communities and engaging other stakeholders, they can be able to achieve better results. Now, this one it's just come up, possibly let me go one page up, sorry for that. You may have come up with reasons why you may want to engage in coordination, where you want to work with other people, where you want to go with the standards. Or possibly if you can maybe put some comments in your chat there and maybe you can reflect at them at the end, exactly why would you want to coordinate? Why would you want to use standards? If you can put in the chat. Thank you, to avoid overlapping. Thank you, Ersi, Banabu. Speed of action, thank you. Avoid duplicity, accountability, quality of care, duplication again, thank you. For equity, wonderful. Quality improvement, efficiency, comparison, thank you. Equality, complementing efforts, thank you. Please continue texting. We'll capture them at the end. Planning, avoid gaps, wonderful. Thank you. Coordination. So all those are key in terms of in terms of using the standards in our humanitarian response. Now, these are some of the things actually we've highlighted in the chart. You see coordination and to be able to predict what is going to come. If you work together and if you have common standards that you use, then you can be able to predict how you need to plan and what are likely to be the gaps in this particular scenario, including a language that is understood by all who are intervening. Efficiency, you mentioned that, which is key. Assessment and evaluation, it's key. You actually, if you go to use the standard special sphere, you'll find that ahead of each of those chapters, you'll find some assessment checklist that can help you in terms of going out to check things on the onset, but also you can use those indicators in terms of doing your planning and come up with an M&E plan. Professionalization of the sector, that is it. You have a place that we can reflect on as professionals, as people in the humanitarian sector, and evaluate ourselves on how we are working. Advocacy, those are key tools you can use with the donors, with the governments, with the communities, in terms of protecting the rights of those who may be vulnerable. Quality of assistance provided, that's right. You can be able to use it as a tool to measure your progress and then be able to improve. And then accountability for resources and to the people. Whatever we get in terms of resources, either through donors, either through communities, and the people that we serve with, if we have a common language standards that we use, we'll be accountable, we'll be answerable for our actions. Quality in humanitarian response. Now, quality is a word that we use quite often, and it has many meanings, meaning effective, that is how we use our resources. Efficiency, that is the resources achievements within a given time, and how appropriate. I wish to mention the third one more, because sometimes we'll do activities not because they're appropriate to the context, but because either we have money or some donor has support, or because it's in our area of mandate. It is important that quality has to go with appropriateness. The best meal in the US may not be the best meal in Kenya or in Zimbabwe or in Indonesia. So please make sure that whatever you give is appropriate to the community and the context and the person who's receiving. It means measuring outcomes against the standards. What have we achieved versus what we planned? How do they compare, with the quality standards that we have set? You should not compare your outcomes with mediocrity. It has to be something that can be verifiable with other person. And then it requires assessments and feedback from stakeholders on what an agency is doing well and how it can do better. It is important that as organizations, we reflect on ourselves internally, but we also engage our peers, we engage communities to give us feedback on where we are doing right and where we have gaps. That is the only way we can learn and to be able to improve quality, because quality of our programs, it is seen by many stakeholders. The donors have expectations, the communities have expectations, the governments have expectations, and also our staff have expectations, plus other agencies. So the more we get feedback and we get to take along all those actors, then we shall improve our quality. Accountability could be moving pretty fast. Hope is reinforcing the points. The key factor is just the responsible use of available resources by humanitarian organizations and staff. Now, you realize that communities and donors and governments have given responsibility to us to undertake some actions, and how we use those resources properly, both the human, the time, the material, and the finance, in a way that is responsible, and we can be held accountable for what goes wrong, then we can say we are practicing accountability. We also need to make sure that our programs conform with the best practices and commonly agreed commitments. Are they focusing on local capacities, for example? Are they focusing on sharing information? Are they focusing on learning? Are they focusing on less wastefulness of resources? So we need to think about that our programs are conforming to the best practices and commonly agreed commitments by all the other stakeholders. And finally, you need to involve stakeholders in their work. Don't do things in isolation. People have different roles, but it is important that if you want to have support and ownership of the project, all the stakeholders must be involved, and most importantly, the communities and the persons that you're trying to serve. Thank you. If you have any questions, you can put in the chat. But at that point, I leave it again to Francie.
So actually, Hatibu,
yes.
Axel and I have been monitoring the chat room, and there's
yes.
one, we've answered most of the questions in line, but there is one I would like to pose to you from Carlos Javier, who asks, why do we have targets in the handbook?
Axel, you wanna try? Axel, are you there or are you gone?
I'm
Why
not
do you have targets in the handbook?
Okay, targets, just like minimum standards, to me, like a lot of people are arguing why we are thriving for a goal which seem to be very difficult to reach. To me, it gives orientation and it helps as a compass where we want to thrive to. So it gives direction and it helps us to focus where we are going to. This would be my short answer to that question.
No, thank you. Thank you, Axel, for that. And maybe just to add is that the purpose of the handbook is to continually push us towards doing our best. And if you did not get to those targets or whatever you have said, it's not criminal. You look forward and see where were the gaps. It could be that there were issues that possibly were not planned for example, in the COVID period. It could be the issues that maybe the communities got displaced at a given time. It could be an issue of resources. But just because we have those problems, it should not mean that we shouldn't have high targets that we can aim at. It is a kind of setting yourself a vision that you want to fight through and get there. It's like somebody saying one of your targets is to have a world. Most of your organizational visions, you'll see that they're talking about things that may not be achieved today, but you're working towards there. So the sphere philosophy is not about the basic outputs we put in place for now, but it's about that continuous learning, continuous working, continuous engaging, continuous innovation to make sure that our interventions do meet the needs of the people within the law and that they are well safeguarded within that context. Sometimes if I take the other target, maybe if you're talking about specific things, some of those pointed, if you look, for example, the issue of indicators, if you wanted to use it, maybe if you want to take them as targets, is that you'll find some of those things in the technical chapters. And these chapters is that through the study, through WHO, for example, through the World Food Program, through working with governments, people have come up with rough estimates of what could work. It is not the only thing that can work, but based on the records and history and previous practice, it is an estimation that if you went for that, it could possibly start leading us to the road where we want to be. So some of those things are data-based from the past, but the world is dynamic, and you see that's why Sphere, for example, it keeps on revising its content, it keeps on revising its chapters to integrate new things learned, new discoveries, new informations that have come from the experts. I hope that answers your question. Tristan,
Thibaut?
anything else?
Oh, Thibaut, may I add just one thing here?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I think all the points that were mentioned are exactly, you nailed it. And there were some comments also in the chat who highlighted the key point. I just want to add, also keep in mind that you have the Sphere book as a wonderful tool to get people who are new in the sector to humanitarian standards. Yeah, I mean that if you have people who do not have the experience that we see here in the Slack channel anywhere, for them it's super helpful to have these quantitative orientations. And this makes, in my experience, for many of them, the work a lot easier. So yeah.
Thank you. And I would like to add, there is Bana Abu Jude. It says that targets can help persuade donors to contribute towards reaching them by providing the resources needed, and helps in advocating with governments and organizations to reach radical changes and address underlying issues, not allowing the achievement of the targets. So that also means that if you have those targets, possibly, you could also objectively use them in terms of advocacy, in terms of lobbying, in terms of getting governments and donors to contribute. So if you use them in an objective way and an informed way where you can link to the local context, then you're likely to get some support coming from other stakeholders. Thank you, Bana Abu. Thank you, Tristan. Anything else?
I think we're good. I think we'll move on. Thank you.
Thank you. So we go to Francie, are you there?
Yes, perfect. Thank you, Hatibu, for your great input. Thank you very much. And due to the time, I would like to hand over to Mas Anang, who gives us a reflection and maybe another perspective. Mas Anang, are you here?
Yes, Francie.
Hi, nice to see you.
So I'm stopping my sharing.
Okay, thank you for, thank you, Hatibu, and thank you for the time. Francie, I just want to use my short time with reflection. So I will be share screen. Okay. Hopefully work. Okay. So this is a reflection regarding community voice, because before I knew Sphere Handbook, I'm part of the community member, becoming a volunteer after the Yogyakarta earthquake, and before in the tsunami, I'm also like a volunteer. Nobody pay me, just a volunteer because volunteer, and because I knew with some organization and give me some capacity building, including Sphere. So yeah, this has become a new perspective, and I try to connecting between the regulation and also guideline in the global, and also what we have done in the community level. So I want to back again regarding our session in the second webinar, and regarding the situation in the community, like humanitarian actors mostly or often use a term of assessment, and also including feedback. But in the community, in reality, all of the thing is about asking the people. So like assessment and also feedback is try to get information from the community or the people. But in the simple way, for me, as in the part of the community, asking is a better word to give understand to the people about what we want to know. In simple sentence, for me, assessment is about you asking a people, and there is some methods. Maybe you can have a direct conversation one-on-one or face-to-face to ask something, and also you can have a discussion or focus group discussion, and also consultation. In this picture, from my experience, in the right picture, this is like a deaf person is have a direct conversation with another deaf person that try to collect information about their capacity to deal with this situation. So this is also part to engage with the community. So assessment, which means asking the people, is the best way also to try to start engage with the people. So when I try to come back again with two polls regarding the difference between the standard and indicator. So in this picture, when we indicate to plan to provide 15 liters per person per day for the clean water, so the best way to know if we as humanitarian actor meet the standard or not, people, is the water is sufficient, equitable, or maybe affordable for the people. So from the information from the people, so we can understand about the quality and also accountability of our action, and maybe we can try to understand if our assistant is meet with the standard or not that we in the Spear Handbook. So this is maybe I will try to explain again about the different regarding the key indicator and the minimum standard. So all is about ask the people. So when the water is sufficient, equitable, affordable, so this is a meet the standard for the people. Whether like the water is less than 15 liter. So this is my explanation regarding the voice from the community. The indicator is always like different when we ask to the people. Maybe some community is achieve like a feeling sufficient and equitable to receive 15 liter, but maybe with another culture is maybe different. So thank you, Francie, for the time, and see you in the next webinar.
Thank you, Masanang. This was great. And I think your presentation fitted perfectly to the discussions we had in the chat about the standards versus the indicators, because the minimum standard says to provide a sufficient amount. And you just showed us that by asking, you can find out this sufficient amount, and that the 15 liters is an indicator to meet. But of course, in case you cannot meet it, you ask the people what is sufficient for them. So thank you so much for your input. That was perfectly and fitted perfectly. So due to the time, I would say we look into more questions into the chat, and I would just hand over to Tristan and Axel, whether there have been something that you want to mention now before I then otherwise go into the discussion what will come up next, and also then maybe we go into the breakout session. So just shortly, Axel, Tristan, what is the status on the questions?
So I think we're on top of the questions. If somebody has a question right now for Anang, then please post it in the next 10 seconds. No, I think we're okay, so we can move on.
Perfect. Very good. Then I would like to share my screen again. Oh, always starts in the beginning when I do it in this version. Okay, I quickly jump to the end. Sorry for that. Okay, so thank you, first of all, for all your great participation. Now we are pretty much on time after 1 hour. Again, I would like to mention that you send all your technical support issues to learning@spherestandards.org. What we would like to mention at that stage, that you raised also some issues in the Slack channel, and that it's very great that you also are helping out each other. And Tristan has lots of incoming requests from all sides. I mean, we had 2,000 registrations, so his email inbox is crowded. But we were very delighted and very happy that you all were helping out each other. I think that's a great spirit, or we all think that's a great spirit, and we really enjoyed that you were taking care of each other. That's real humanitarianism, I guess, here. Yeah, the recording will be available after today's live webinar, last week as well. We will provide it via YouTube link, and we will upload it on the e-learning platform. Then by next week, Wednesday, April 7th, we have our module 2 live webinar, which is called Drought in Abudi. And we have an expert with us for TSEA. Please make sure to complete the module 2 e-learning and assignments before midday on Tuesday, the day before the live webinar. In case you cannot manage to do the assignments, you still have the possibility to do it later on. It was just that we would like to have the assignment results so that we can put it into the presentation we are having the next day. As I said, please continue the discussions on Slack, use the network, use the other persons. We are all here to learn. And on Friday, we will be having a new Slack channel on PSEA by Christine. She will introduce herself by then. Okay, in case there have not been any other questions coming up, I would also like to apologize at this stage that there are a few technical issues. I hope for your patience with us for that, because it's the first time we are having this MOOC with so many people, and we are all trying our best. And I think, yeah, it's a new learning experience for all of us. So thank you for your patience and tolerance. And now for everyone who would like to join us, we would continue for the next half an hour with a little group discussion. So our plan would be, and we have not done it before with so many participants, at the moment we have 300 participants live with us, to go into a breakout sessions. The idea behind that is that you can meet the other learners, meet the other participants, as I said before. Unfortunately, we cannot do a face-to-face training here, so we meet virtually. And in order for you to share the experience you are having right now, maybe also with the e-learning, with the assignments, with the live webinar, with everything you experience right now with the entire MOOC, you can share now among each other. And what the plan is, we would put you into different breakout rooms with 4 to 5 people, and then you can discuss among each other. And what would be really great, we would be sharing a Mentimeter link with you, where you should answer the question, why is the participation on the Sphere MOOC important for you? You can enter any word you like, and in the end, we will create a word cloud and present it in the beginning of next live webinar. So we will take care of the results that have been come out and see why it's important for you to take care in this MOOC. And of course, as soon as you enter the room, the breakout room, it would be nice to have a little introduction round so that you get to know each other a little bit. And yeah, also to enlarge your network among each other. Maybe you have other experts you can rely on in the future and use as a good resource for your work in the humanitarian field. Are there any questions on the breakout sessions so far? Maybe is there something that came up for this? Because the issue is we will have the breakout session for approximately 20 to 25 minutes, and then at 12:30 we will lock it down, and then we meet next week again. We will stop the recording for this session now. The live webinar is now officially over, and we would go into our little breakout room. So maybe you can show me quick hands up, Tristan and Axel, that there's no issues on the breakout sessions, and then I would go into send the participants or our participants into the room.
Yeah, so I think Leo is arranging the rooms.
Mm-hmm.
Just really for everybody, we'd really like you to stay, but there's no obligation to do so. You may have technical issues with the breakout rooms, and we apologize for that. There are only 6 of us on the training team. So if you do have a problem, you can raise your hand and we can try and come to help you, but we may be a bit slow, okay? This technology is wonderful when it works, but it doesn't work all the time. If you feel uncomfortable in the breakout room you are in, or you are on your own, please come back to the main room or leave the webinar. This is an experiment. This is the first week we're doing it, of course. If it works well, we will do it again next week, of course.
And please also use the breakout room to learn, to connect, to network, because if we would usually visit trainings, I think that's something we all appreciate if we meet other learners. And if we can get together with other people who are on the same course. So please also use the breakout for networking if you want to.
Perfect. Then I would like to thank everybody for their participation, for their time. We received some nice comments here already that you have enjoyed the session. From our side, we also enjoyed these sessions a lot. And we are looking forward to meeting you next time. And we hope that some of you will be meeting now online and connect and network a little bit. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
See you soon.
Thank you.